What's up? Welcome to the Plus Pitch Podcast, your morning starting pitcher podcast brought to you by PitcherList.com. My name is Jake Crumpler, and today is August 21st. Let's break down every single start from August 20th. We'll start off with Grant Holmes, and some pitchers can lure you into a sense of trust. They get onto your roster after a good start or two, but they betray you and they bring your fantasy team down with them. We've got a term for pitchers like that, but it's not used very often, but I'm bringing it back. Grant Holmes is a double bubble, and you may be intrigued after his start on Thursday on the south side of Chicago, where he turned in 6 shutout innings with 1 hit, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts, inducing 16 whiffs with 30% CSW across 94 pitches. But don't be fooled. There's one good reason to leave Holmes on the waiver wire in standard leagues, and that's because he breaks the Huascar rule. The real estate broker has an elite slider, and it was no more evident than on Thursday when it induced a whopping 12 whiffs, keying all 3 of Holmes's punch outs in the outing. That's dope. It's also all he's got. Sure, four-seamers sometimes avoid enough damage to induce a couple of whiffs or grab a couple of Ks. Curveballs can come alive to take over as the primary breaker, or even his cutter, which he completely axed on Thursday, might become an assistant against left-handed batters, but rarely does Holmes find the support for his signature breaker consistently. The slide piece has propelled him to 6 shutout frames in 3 of his last 4 starts, but you shouldn't be tricked into a false sense of security when looking to Holmes as a potential streamer. Even at his best, he's hyper reliant on batted balls. He's had 8 quality starts this year, producing a 1.29 ERA in them, but he's fanned just 17% of these percent of the batters he's faced in those starts. He's had just 1 start this year with more than 6 strikeouts, which is a 10 strikeout outing on May 23rd, and just 1 with more than 5 strikeouts. So just two with more than 5 strikeouts. So he said the 1 10 strikeout outing with more than 6 strikeouts, and then he had 1 other outing with 6 strikeouts to give him 2 with more than 5 strikeouts. So he has not been a reliable strikeout arm, which not only suggests that he's somebody that's heavily reliant on batted balls, finding gloves to get him through 6 frames, but he's also not somebody with a ceiling that's worth chasing. With the Dodgers on deck, you can bet that Holmes will be in the do not start tier despite his recent run of scoreless outings. That slider has helped him turn in a handful of decent starts this year, but the ceiling is not worth chasing, especially when it comes with a scary whip floor. He's got a 1.32 whip in 25 outings this year, caused by a reliance on batted balls finding gloves and a double-digit walk rate. That's Grant Holmes, but let's see how every other starting pitcher did on Thursday, starting with Grayson Rodriguez in Houston. He tossed 7 shutout innings, allowing 5 hits, 2 walks, and 6 strikeouts. And I went looking at Gray Rod's game card, praying for a step forward with his breakers to make this dominance something to get hyped about. Nope. This was all 4-seamers and changeups as usual. I wish I could believe that his 4-seamer could consistently dominate for 11 whiffs, 38% CSW, and 76% strikes, but he didn't do anything different here to suggest that it'll carry over into his next start. Like a trip to Chevron, Rodriguez filled up the zone with gas, 62% zone rate on the 4-seamer, and he got away with 12 foul balls and 11 called strikes to avoid the wrath of the Astros bats. There was no semblance of an approach here from Gray Rod, and changeups weren't much better, rarely kissing the edges for just 17% CSW. I wish I could say that his breakers deserve to be thrown more often too, but their command was awful. Sliders hung out either in the heart of the zone or bounced in the dirt, while curveballs never once found the zone, 0% zone rate on the hook. And now I'm asking, how many wishes do I have left? I think that's 2 wishes, so I should get 1 more. I wish Gray Rod didn't pitch for the Angels because I don't trust them to get the most out of his arsenal. And unfortunately, that's not a wish that'll come true until 2030, when Gray Rod will finally be a free agent. Next, we've got Jacob deGrom versus the Nationals. He tossed 6 shutout innings with 1 hit, 1 walk, and 10 strikeouts. Absolute dominance from deGrom. Ace is going to ace. He hasn't dominated like this since he pitched 7 shutout innings with 10 Ks back on May 10th. And it helped that he actually got 4-seamers upstairs because he's been unable to do that consistently recently. That's something that he did all the time when he was at his best with the Mets, but we've seen four-seamers fall down a little bit more. That wasn't the case here. They thrived upstairs, and the Nationals were willing to chase a changeup that found the zone just 7% of the time. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see all those changeups in the dirt versus left-handed batters, and he still induced 4 whiffs with the slow ball. I know DeGrom's 3.77 ERA on the year is less than ideal, but he's not losing that ace is going to ace tag anytime soon. Starts like these are what we keep him around for. Next, we've got Randy Dobnak versus the A's. 4 shutout innings, 6 hits, 4 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And I know it wasn't good because he only lasted 4 frames, but this is still hilariously ridiculous. 10 base runners and 0 earned runs in Sacre Verde. Come on, Koufax. You're supposed to maintain your anonymity with synchronicities that can be written off as happenstance. You can't just blatantly put all your weight on the scale like this. If not for inefficiency caused by a quartet of free passes, we'd have protests against your collusion with Randy Dobnak. That's 8 of 9 outings with 2 or fewer runs for Dobnak, and 7 with 1 or fewer, and 5 with 0 earned runs, producing a 1.58 ERA, but with a 1.40 whip and a sub 15% strikeout rate, there's no way this continues. But with a little bit of Koufax magic, now he's got Toronto up next. He heads to Toronto next before hosting the Marlins and then the Blue Jays again across the next 2 weeks. So of course he's going to get this done again. You got to be kidding me. The schedule just continues to be easy for Randy Dobnak. Next, we've got Shane Bieber in Tampa Bay. He tossed 7 innings, allowing 1 run with 4 hits, no walks, and 7 strikeouts. And he induced 37% CSW to take home the King Cole and leave it to the domed confines of the Trop to boost an already solid heater into the stratosphere. Bieber's four-seamer added 1.5 inches of IVB to get it close to averaging 19 inches, allowing it to thrive in the zone to steal 13 called strikes. With secondaries going ring around the rosy with his trio of fastball variants, he befuddled Rays hitters on his way to the King Cole. Bieber's been frustratingly volatile this year, making it difficult to determine if he's the safe Holly that he's been in years past, or if he's a near elite cherry bomb that toys with our emotions. He's had 4 starts with 4+ runs this year, with the other 7 returning 2 or fewer. So he's been a little bit hot and cold, with nearly 70% overall strikes here, displaying his command of a deep arsenal that has not lost a step in terms of movement or velocity. I'm inclined to trust Bieber with the Royals before he heads to Cleveland up next. Next, we've got Garrett Cole in Baltimore. 6 innings, 1 earned, 4 hits, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. And ace is going to ace for Garrett Cole. He hasn't found the elite command that could thrust him into tier 1 on the list, but he's definitely figured out how to thrive without it after some early struggles. Since the beginning of July, Garrett Cole has pitched to a 2.45 ERA, a 0.96 whip, and a 31% strikeout rate. Is that good or what? He had 70% plus strikes on 3 of his pitches here, and he was absolutely dominating, and there's no reason to believe that Garrett Cole's going to slow down anytime soon. I honestly believe he's just going to continue to get stronger as he gets further and further away from surgery. Next, we've got Andrew Alvarez in Texas. 5 innings, 1 earned, 4 hits, 3 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Alvarez finally fell out of the good graces of Koufax after returning 3 or fewer hits in 3 straight starts to pitch into the 6th for the first 3 times all year. Alvarez allowed 4 hits. The man, Koufax, loves him a curveball wielding southpaw, and I don't know how Alvarez is doing this. It's not the worst stream in the world with Rocky Road up next. If that goes well, you might as well keep it going with the Marlins afterwards. Just don't count on Alvarez for a quality start, as the Nationals are not willing to give him a longer leash. He's exceeded 80 pitches, I think, only twice this year. And here he was at 75 pitches. So don't look to Alvarez as somebody who's going to go 6 frames. Somebody who will go 6 frames is Anthony Kay, who took on the Braves and went 6 innings with 2 earned runs, 5 hits, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts. And I'm liking what I'm seeing from Kay recently, and it's enough for me to remove him from the Toby who we can stream against bottom half offensive category. With an extra tick of velocity across the board and excellent pitch separation, Kay had no problem handling Hotlanta. This was even a careful Icarus as he was extended into the 7th, served up a double, and was removed, only to watch the inherited runner come around to score. Kay's been throwing harder across the board since the beginning of June, most notable in his cutter. And during that time, he's recorded a 3.23 ERA and a 1.16 whip. The 20% strikeout rate during that time isn't much to get excited about, but with a 13% 13% swinging strike rate. He's like a slight change in his pitch sequencing away from being a Holly. If you do the rudimentary math of just doubling swinging strike rate, he's sort of deserving of a 26% strikeout rate. Maybe it should be somewhere in between 20 and 26%, but still, that's very solid, especially if it comes with those reliable ratios that we've seen since the beginning of July. I'm writing this out where I'm in need of reliable, if not spectacular, production. Next, we've got Gavin Williams versus the Giants. He tossed 5 2/3 innings, allowing 2 earned, 4 hits, 3 walks, and 11 strikeouts. He induced 18 whiffs to earn the gallows pull. Ace is going to ace for Gavin Williams. And after combining for just 12 punch-outs across his previous 2 starts, Williams locked back in with his 6th double-digit strikeout game across his past 8 starts. I'm not sure why he leaned on curveballs as his primary pitch, as he didn't command them well. They had just 54% strikes, and his usual four-seamer/sweeper approach was working just fine. Oh, well, this just could have been even better if he just relied on the four-seamer and sweeper as his primary offerings, but we'll take this all day. Next, we'll talk about Kyle Bradish, Michael McGreevy, Landon Roop, and the rest of the guys who pitched on Thursday. But first, we're going to take a quick break here on the Plus Pitch podcast. And we're back. Jake Crumpler here, breaking down every single start from Thursday's games. We'll resume with Kyle Bradish versus the Yankees. He tossed 5 2/3 innings, allowing 300 runs with 8 hits, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Blech. And I'm sort of done with Kyle Bradish at this point. He hasn't fanned more than 5 batters since June 22nd, a 9-start stretch during which his ratios have been fine, a 3.81 ERA and a 1.25 whip, but he struck out just 17% of the batters he's faced. This is a guy who was in line to be an ace at some point, especially in the previous few years, but he's not looked like that recently. It's been a failure to find the command of both of his breakers within starts, leaving his hittable heaters in no man's land. Bradish is a guy with a slider and a curveball. Usually he throws sliders to righties and curveballs to lefties. So if he doesn't have one of them working, he gets pretty prone to having to throw those fastballs more often and in the zone so that he can avoid walking the yard. And usually that leads to a lot of hits, a lot of home runs, because those fastballs are very hittable. Sliders were dope on Thursday with 46% CSW and 75% strikes, but curveballs were not, with just 8% CSW and 54% strikes, forcing sinkers and changeups to step up against left-handed batters. That slow ball is a new development that Bradish started throwing to left-handed batters across his last 2 starts to attempt to combat the dodginess of the zone of his hook. It could be the savior if it resolved the strike problem that forces him to be so reliant on breakers finding the zone, but it returned just 20% strikes, so it only added to the issues here. This start was sort of fine if you ignore the 2 unearned runs and shine a positive light on his Philly that was brought about by a pair of 6th-inning long balls, the last of which knocked Bradish out of the game. But I'm not even convincing myself with those caveats. He's got the floor of a cherry bomb, but he hasn't showcased the upside that makes a volatile pitcher worth rostering. Maybe give Bradish one more shot to get back on track hosting the Cardinals next before we drop him everywhere when he heads to Coors, but I'd be looking for a replacement immediately. Next, we've got Michael McGreevy in Cincinnati, 5 1/3 innings, 3 earned, 3 hits, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. A command-focused, contact-oriented, change-up slinging Toby returning sub 60% overall strikes is not the hyphen-laden description I want of a pitcher on my fantasy roster. McGreevy's command has not been pristine recently, with multiple walks in 5 of his last 6 starts, after doing so just 7 times in his first 19 starts. And for a guy looking to get outs on balls in play, having extra guys on base is less than ideal, especially when good fortune fades and balls start finding gaps and runs start scoring more often. McGreevy's a fine deep league streaming option hosting the Orioles next, but it's time to let him go afterwards as he heads to Hollywood before taking on Coors. Next, we've got Landon Roop in Cleveland, 5 1/3 innings, 3 earned, 5 hits, 4 walks, and 2 strikeouts. And I've been pretty confident in Roop's resurgence because of his ability to maintain his elite pitch separation despite walking 3 or more in 5 straight starts. All 4 of his walks on Thursday came in full count, suggesting that he's just not commanding poorly, but rather that he's been unable to find the right put-away pitch to end at bats. A 20% put-away rate supports that claim. So Roop just needs to figure out what to do in 2-strike counts so he can avoid these full count walks. It seems as though he's a mere tweak away from getting back on track. And honestly, I'm a mere tweak away from being unable to get out of bed. Next, we've got Ian Seymour versus the Blue Jays. 5 innings, 3 earned, 6 hits, 1 walk, and 8 strikeouts. And those darn home runs. And even if chicks dig the long ball, they don't dig it when you're giving up the long balls. They like it when you're hitting them. Seymour served up a trio of solo shots to ruin his ERA on Thursday, but he was otherwise his classic Swatch self. There was definitely room for better precision, though. He didn't pull off the Blake Snell blueprint, and his donut command is making me think about what I'm having for breakfast this morning. I have cinnamon-filled croissants from Costco. This is not a paid promotion or anything, but they are pretty darn good. Back to Ian Seymour. He certainly got away with a ton of hittable heaters here, returning a bonkers 43% foul ball rate. And let's just be happy that he salvaged this dusty donut with 8 punch outs. Send Seymour back out there when he heads to Detroit next, but keep an eye on his command. Not only is it integral to his success, but he might be the odd man out when Griffin Jax returns from the injured list in the next couple of weeks. Next, we've got Brady Singer versus the Cardinals. 6 innings, 4 earned, 5 hits, 1 walk, and 3 strikeouts. A third inning, 3-run home run by the cleanup hitter caused most of the damage against Singer, but he didn't really cover himself in glory with poor command against left-handed batters. If he's only going to throw his cutter 5 times, he needs to have pristine pitch separation and pull off the Blake Snell blueprint against left-handed batters to succeed. He did not do that. He was lucky this wasn't even worse, as Koufax allowed him to return 15 outs on 20 balls in play despite 60% hard contact. And sinkers avoided a ton of damage with a whopping 19 foul balls, narrowly missing the barrels of those little things the little red birds sit on in his opponent's logos. Singer's long leash makes him someone much better in quality start leagues, but he could be viable universally when he heads to Oracle Park next if he can figure out those darn left-handed batters. Next, we've got Robert Gasser versus the Mariners. 3 2/3 innings, 4 earned, 4 hits, 4 walks, and 4 strikeouts. And previewing this start, I said Gasser could find success as a streamer if he found his changeup feel to handle right-handed batters and got 4-seamers upstairs. He did neither of those things. Does he not listen to the First Pitch podcast every day? I think only the smartest fantasy managers in baseball do that. The slow balls earned strikes half the time, and 4-seamers loitered in the middle of the zone. Cutters did a great job of jamming right-handed batters, but that's about all Gasser can hang his hat on from this one. He tied his season high with 4 walks, as the last one came on a rare mid-at-bat pitching change that ended in a free pass, credited to Gasser, of course. It's hot enough outside that I don't need to be sweating Gasser's starts, but I won't rule out production when he heads to Queens next. Next, we've got Gage Jump in Kansas City. 4 innings, 5 earned, 8 hits, 3 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And with a strikeout ceiling worth chasing and a scary home park, Jump is the ideal streaming target on the road against a weak offense. Too bad he's proven to be a cherry bomb regardless of his destination. Jump's success is dependent on his ability to get his impressive heater upstairs with minimal support from sliders to keep him from walking the yard. All he needs is those fastballs dotting upstairs and the sliders just getting him enough strikes so that he doesn't issue a bunch of free passes. But fastballs were all over the place, inducing just 1 whiff, making obsolete the awesome 92% strike rate that his slider produced. Jump is a coin flip every time out, but I'm not risking it in Sacre Verde against the Twins next. Second to last, we've got George Kirby in Milwaukee. 3 1/3 innings, 6 earned, 9 hits, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. And this was gross. Kirby's velocity was down, his locations were lacking, and his curveballs were his primary pitch, despite producing his lowest strike rate among pitches thrown more than twice. Did Kirby swallow the ghost of Michael Lorenzen? I see the remnants of what he was trying to do here, and it wasn't much different from what he's done this year, which hasn't really been very successful. That's a 7.13 ERA and a 1.71 whip with a sub 12% strikeout rate for Kirby across his last 5 starts. And there are people lining up outside his residency with pitchforks and torches ready to take him to the waiver wire. And I don't blame you. If there's someone on the wire that can be a difference maker in your fantasy playoffs, go for it. In most leagues, though, I think you're just going to have to stick it out with George Kirby. Lastly, we've got Peter Lambert versus the Angels. 3 2/3 innings, 9 earned, 8 hits, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Oof, that ends Lambert's streak of 8 straight starts with 2 or fewer runs allowed. This wasn't as bad as it looks, though. He definitely got singled out with a 471 BABIP despite 59% weak contact. Some poor fielding in the second made things worse, and the fourth was just a complete disaster. He left with the bases loaded and watched the carousel go round and round to score all 3 inherited runs. I'd write this off as a one-night bland and give the established Holly Lambert a mulligan, even in the Bronx next Wednesday. And looking forward to today, our game of the day is a good one. Aces, Jacob Mizorowski versus Chris Sale, and it doesn't get more dope than that. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Plus Pitch podcast. Make sure to head on over to pitcherlist.com to check out all of the great articles and features we have on the site. Sign up for PL Plus or PL Pro to gain access to the Discord and all of the other features we have on the site. You can also talk to people like me over on the Discord and other Pitcher List staff. You can follow me on socials at Jake Crumpler, where I do daily SP streamers and I break down every single start via the Pitcher List stats player cards. Make sure to read my edition of the SP Roundup over on pitcherlist.com. It accompanies this podcast, and make sure to enjoy all the pitching outings today, and we'll be back with you tomorrow to break down all of the pitchers from Friday's games.